Burn Ball, Ballsies, Rump Rounders, Buttock Blocker, Red Butt, Blackjack, Assies, Rehab and Tea, Wall Ball, Slaughterhouse, Fumble, Butt Ball, Bear Trap, Asses Up, Suicides, Stitch, Peg, Fire in the Bum, A-Ball, Buns Up, Booties Up, Electric Booty, No Fear, Red Bum, Jetters, Red Ass, Red Out, Sting, Error, Off the Wall, Kirby, Spread, or Burn.
Welcome to the 3% Podcast. This is Chad Post from Open Letter Books, and I'm here with Tom Roberge from New Directions for our somewhat regular podcast about books and sports and various other things. So today there's two main things that we wanted to talk about. That situation with Amazon and Hachette and how things that are going on around that. And then also the 2014 World Cup of Literature, which we mentioned on our last podcast, which has kicked off and is... By the time you're hearing this, 9 matches have been decided already. So we'll talk a bit about some of those matchups and some of the looking ahead to some of the other things. But I should also, before we get into it, and then we'll end with rants and raves, and I have some rants. I have enough rants to last me for the next 7 or 8 podcasts. I know. I'm choosing in my mind right now. But the before we do that, I should point out that I terribly fucked up every bit of describing the World Cup qualifying in our last podcast, and everyone has corrected me, especially Michael Orthofer. So if you go to the post for that, it explains everything. Basically, FIFA divided up the world into several regions, which I knew. Each of those regions has a sort of different state of qualifying depending on how many teams they're allowed to send to the World Cup. The number of teams that they're allowed to send depends on how well they've done in the past, and it's decided by FIFA after each World Cup. So like if Africa, an African nation, were to do really, really well this World Cup and make it to like the semifinals or the finals, they might be allotted another slot for the next World Cup. But as is, I think they only have like 4 or something like that. All the information is on FIFA.org or .com or whatever they are.
Can we? Well, we don't really need to get into this, but how do regions get half a slot, and what happens there?
The half a slot ones, they have won a playoff essentially. So like if I think doesn't Europe have half a slot, and
I think CONCACAF had one.
And CONCACAF, and then that team that ends up in the last place that would have, like, say they had 3.5 slots. The top three teams make it, and then the 4th team has to play someone, and the winner of those, another country or region that has a half a slot, those two play, and the winner of that game makes it to the World Cup.
Is this how Iceland got beat out?
No, no, because Iceland got beat out because in the way that the UEFA region sort of worked, the European region, was they have, I think they had 8 groups, and the top 8 teams, the ones that won each one of those groups, made it automatically, and then the second place teams had to play each other, and the winner of that would go in, because they only had like 13 slots or whatever it was. So they had to cut down the number. So Iceland played Croatia and lost. So Croatia made it and Iceland didn't. But that was just a normal slot.
Got it.
But yeah, that's more or less how it works. And Australia is a weird one. Apparently they switched to the Asian division because Oceania only has a half slot every World Cup. And that was kind of ridiculous.
That is kind of ridiculous.
So I think they moved into a little bit more competitive, but mostly Asia has more slots to send teams, which is why you have Japan, South Korea, Iran, and Australia. Because I think Iran shows up under the Asian one too. Although I'm sure I'm wrong about everything. Anyways, okay, so correcting that aside, how about Amazon?
All right. So this actually started happening a while back. I think we just sort of ignored it in the last podcast we did, just because this is not new to those of us who work in publishing, that Amazon, every publisher renegotiates its terms with Amazon at least every, let's say, 3 or 4 years, I'm guessing.
I think that's right. And with other places like Barnes & Noble.
Of course, everyone. Yeah. With everyone, of course. But and these terms are basically what they're paying what Amazon will pay the publishers for the whatever. I know we're talking about ebooks here, but for the physical copy of, and it's done by percentage.
Yeah, it's a discount that they get to sell the book.
It's a discount, yes. We talk about discounts, and booksellers, independent bookstores have the same thing, and it's all sort of regulated because you can't give one discount to a better. You can't give a better discount to an outlet that you like better without offering it to other retailers as well. Anyway, it's all kind of complicated. Thing is, Amazon is always they play hardball when it comes to specifically the ebooks and the discounts. And there's been, the whole thing about, agency model versus retail model, like of pricing and who gets to decide how much it is. The thing is, Amazon is trying to get further discounts on their books, on their ebooks from Hachette.
Yeah.
Hachette, sick of Amazon sort of bullying, engaging in, quote, predatory pricing and a violation of antitrust laws, as they say. They are fighting back and do not want to just acquiesce to Amazon's what they considered less than favorable terms on behalf of for Hachette. They think it makes Amazon make more money than Hachette does, is the basic bottom line. Anyway, in retaliation, this is where it gets interesting, Amazon has taken the pre-order buttons off of all Hachette books. And Hachette, I should say, they're not like Amazon. They're not Random House big. They're pretty big, though. They publish a lot of books.
Oh, yeah.
They have Malcolm Gladwell and Stephen Colbert, as we'll get to in a minute. And this guy, what's his name? John Green, who wrote The Fault in Our Stars.
I don't think John Green is published by Hachette.
No?
No, he spoke out about it because he writes about bullies and stuff. But I think he's published by someone else.
Oh. Anyway, so the point is there's a lot of big authors, and they sell a lot of books. And taking the pre-order off of books is kind of a nasty, asshole-ish thing to do.
Although it's not in their defense, it's not their responsibility to have to do that.
No, they don't have to do that. Of course not. But it's one of these things where they've taken them only off Hachette titles. And they did this before with FSG and when they were debating. And they've also stopped warehousing so many Hachette titles. So it'll say, it'll take 3 weeks to get a book, et cetera, things like that. Which is kind of bullshit, if only because I would assume that Hachette and Amazon are currently operating under an agreement that remains in place until the new terms are negotiated.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, but I would assume so too. Although I wouldn't be surprised if it was wrong.
Which means that Amazon is violating the terms of that contract.
Not actually.
No?
No. Because the terms of the contract would just be based on, the terms of the contract will be based on the discount for books that they sell and the amount of co-op that they receive based on as a percentage of the number of units and the amount of money that they sell of Hachette books. But they're under no obligation to have to stock X number of Hachette books or have buttons on books that are forthcoming or any of that stuff. It's just the same as like any independent bookstore.
Right, and they're not obliged to carry any book ever.
No, they're not. They're not required to do anything.
That's what I've said. They're not obliged to carry anything.
Oh, right, yeah.
City Lights refuses to carry, anything by a Fox News pundit and things like that.
And the Steve Jobs biography.
Right, and the Steve Jobs biography.
But I don't think they're violating any of the agreement. It's just a negotiating tactic. It's like they can slow down Hachette sales so that Hachette could say like, oh shit, like now our profits for the past quarter are down because Amazon's not shipping things fast enough and we have no pre-orders for any of these books. We better just like give in.
Right.
And it's fucking business. I don't know. I just looked, Hachette made in 2012 2.08 billion euros.
Oh, yeah, they're a German company as well. French. Oh, shit. Yeah.
And their digital books made up 7.7% of their net sales overall.
Yeah.
They're pretty big.
They're pretty big.
Oh, anyway. J.K. Rowling's the other big name that you want to include in there. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't really care to debate, and I don't think you do either, whether or not Amazon is right or Hachette is right. I mean, you could make a case that Hachette is just trying to keep the status quo that is kind of no longer, valid in this, the current retail situation. I mean, this is the course of free market capitalism, right? I mean,
Right.
There's an argument to be made there. That said, it does seem that Amazon is rather predatory, if you will. Anyway.
They're fierce. Their smartphone thing is going to be another one of these deals. They're announcing it today.
Anyway, so what happened eventually, which is, after several op-eds in the New York Times and, business section articles in the Wall Street Journal and that sort of thing, finally, Sherman Alexie appears on the Colbert Report, and they talk about this whole thing, and it ends with Sherman Alexie recommending a book called California, and Stephen Colbert, of course, pimping his own book endlessly, and urging people buy them on Powell's website or at independent bookstores, et cetera, et cetera. There was a huge spike. I mean,
yeah, huge.
Huge. I mean, gigantic, which infuriates me because people are sheep, and it took Stephen Colbert, who is not a publishing person, nor a particularly literary author or anything of this nature, to talk about these things. And then when he does say something, they just blindly went out and pre-ordered this California book, which, look, it might be wonderful. I have no idea. Pre-ordered it knowing very little about it. Just to sort of be on Stephen Colbert's. I don't know. It's really infuriating. That said, good for Powell's. Very good for Powell's. I'm glad they're going to get some money out of this. I don't know how to say the author's name. Eden.
I don't either. I was trying to find...
I would not know how to say that. Anyway.
Lapushki?
I have no idea. California is obviously gonna get a great bump when it goes on sale, and hopefully does well. But it is very sad that it takes this. Anyway, so it's all sort of encouraging in a we all want independent bookstores to do well, to do better than Amazon. We don't want people to rely on Amazon, I would not think. I was out in San Francisco visiting stores, as I do, and all of them in the suburbs, well, not all of them. I will say I saw at least 3 displays out of like 5 stores in like the suburbs, by which I mean not San Francisco or Oakland proper, that had little displays up explaining in very, very short words just exactly what was going on with Hachette and Amazon. And they had a display where you could buy Sherman Alexie books, Stephen Colbert books, and there was even they had even done like this, like a little card where you could go to the register and pre-buy California. And I made a point to ask all the booksellers, is this working? Do your customers seem to care about this, et cetera, et cetera? They're like, yeah, no one seems to have any idea what it is, nor do they seem interested in what the debate is. And maybe this is like the wrong audience. I mean, these are people who already shop at an independent bookstore, so maybe they're not the people who even pay attention to things like this. But it is kind of sad. I will say, then I hung out with Stephen Sparks, who works at Green Apple Books in the Richmond section of San Francisco. And I mentioned this to him, and he's like, what? Really? I have 5 conversations a day about this kind of thing. So who knows? Like, it's clearly something that's being talked about. To what extent there might be a shift in the retail market, even a short-lived one, I think maybe I'm just being delusional. I thought like a week ago I was very hopeful that, maybe the tide has turned and people will finally fight back against Amazon. But, of course, fervor as it does died down, and here we are again. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors for that, though, too. I mean, the one that there's some op-ed of like how to shop at an independent bookstore or something is one of those cutesy things.
Oh, were you talking about the one on Esquire?
I think it was, yeah. Okay.
Do you realize this is 750 words? How to shop at an independent bookstore? What the fuck? Go to the store and buy a book. You
The,
don't need directions, explanations on how to shop at a bookstore. This is absurd. They're clearly just trying to cash in on like what they perceive as some sort of independent spirit cachet or something like that, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, but the thing, like, the I'll just go back to the same argument I make every single time that this ever comes up is that we don't have a bookstore here. Like, this is a 1,000,000-person city, and there's no independent bookstore to go shop at. So, like, there's a lot of places like that. Which makes it problematic. Like the bookstores, when I'm in places that have independent bookstores, especially ones that I like, which I tend to mean ones that carry our books, I always buy stuff from them. But when there isn't one around, there's not a lot of options. And that's one of the advantages that Amazon has in this, because we have all this talk among bookselling and publishing professional people about Amazon, but we make up like 0.01% at best of their customers. And we're also the ones that are always complaining. And like the rest of the customers are just like, who cares? It's just, we don't even know of Hachette. Like, that sounds French and probably vaguely anti-American. Like, who cares? And that's just unfortunately the way it is. Yeah. I mean, I love independent bookstores, and I love independent booksellers in particular, like as people. I just wish there's more of them, or one that I could hang out at here.
Well, even online, I think, the Stephen Colbert didn't drive people to, their local bookstore. He drove them to Powell's, which I think is even a good step, is to make people realize that they don't have to rely on Amazon if you're going to buy things online. And I think that's even a good first step, is, get people away from Amazon, get them to Powell's, which is actually a bookstore,
Yeah. You'll have price problems with that.
Yes.
Do you want to take a guess as to how many copies were sold because of that?
Of what?
Of California.
1,000?
Whoa, way more than that.
Really?
Yep.
Like 15,000?
Not that many. 6,400, according to this article on June 13th.
That's probably going to make it a bestseller that we.
They said 15,000 will land you on the New York Times bestseller list. So, so that's not that far away from just Powell. So that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
There was I related this, which is really funny. You may have seen this yesterday, but this woman wrote this book called Joyland, and it was published as an ebook only on Amazon and maybe elsewhere. And she wrote it, and then the next, like a year later or whatever, Stephen King's Joyland came out, which is only available in print. He wouldn't have an ebook version available. So people, because of the names or whatever, and people are idiots, would order her ebook and then complain about it in like the reviews section of her page on Amazon about how it was a really terrible Stephen King novel and it wasn't at all what they wanted, and so on and so forth. But she got a royalty check, which was like hundreds of dollars more than she'd ever received before because of people confusing her Joyland with Stephen King's Joyland. So she spent all the money and like documented it on this blog in this way where like what she spent the money on. Then there's a question of like, would Stephen King approve of this? And she's like, I think Stephen King would approve of this. This is a good purchase on our behalf. And then, but like one of them was like the new St. Vincent CD, and she's like, I'm not sure if Stephen King would approve of St. Vincent or not. But it's pretty funny that sort of mistake can still happen.
Yeah, people are stupid.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, enough about that.
Yeah.
Visit bookstores, people. That's all. That is all. You will meet nice people who read good books.
Yep.
That's it. That's my public service announcement. All right, let's move on to the World Cup of Literature.
Yeah. Okay, so I have the bracket of what everything that's won so far. I don't know how you want to do this. Do you want to talk about some of the winners and then just generally who you think's going to move on?
Yeah, I think some of these are more interesting than others, obviously.
Yeah. You know what I did? I pulled up because on each one of the posts, if you go to 3% and go to, and almost every post that's on there right now, all we're really doing is the World Cup of Literature with each person's write-up of each individual match. And at the bottom, you can vote on whether or not the winner deserved a win or not. So I pulled up each one of those to see like how many were close and how many were not.
All right,
And
which is the closest?
the closest, surprisingly enough, is Q-Teen-84 beating Memories of My Melancholy Horrors. So Murakami over Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It did all of them have received more yeses than nos, but did Q-Teen-84 deserve to win? 53% of people said yes to 46.9% who said no.
I have not read the Murakami. I really don't have any opinion on that particular book. I think we've well documented our mutual sort of dislike for Murakami's writing. That said, very late period Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I don't know. It's a slim little book. Could it really stack up to a big Murakami book? I don't know.
Yeah.
It was unlikely.
I don't think
just
so.
by the breadth of it alone, you would think that Q-Teen-84 would be better. I don't know.
And of one of the few matches that have been cited so far, where we know who's going to match up in the second round, Japan's Q-Teen-84 and Murakami's Q-Teen-84, representing Japan, will face off against Italy and Elena Ferrante's The Days of Abandonment, which took out Zadie Smith in the first round. And that one had, I think, the highest number of votes so far in favor of it, where 80% of the people voted that Days of Abandonment deserved to win.
Really?
Yeah, 48 to 12. I mean, it's not like these are huge numbers, but 80% is pretty solid.
That's pretty solid. I mean, I would have thought that Zadie Smith would have had more fans out there. Which is not to say that people are not also fans. It's just, maybe in the face of someone like Elena Ferrante, it's obvious she's not.
Although I am wrong.
Quite as good.
Let me take that back. Let me revise that statement because I just checked and I'm wrong. That was the second highest so far. I'm not counting senselessness from today because it only has a handful of votes. Budapest, the Brazilian representative, beating Cameroon's Dark Heart of the Night, got 90% of the votes. So that one's the top, and then the second one is Ferrante. So far.
Still, Ferrante, it's interesting that it's even above 50% to me.
Yeah, I mean that it's that high, and that's. If it was like 60, 65, you'd be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But 80 is serious.
Yeah,
so who do you think between Murakami's Q-Teen-84 and Days of Abandonment?
I mean, I think Days of Abandonment has to be a favorite to make the quarters out of that bracket. So, I mean, look, I love... that's a tough bracket up there. I'm gonna guess Bolaño wins his matchup.
Yeah.
I mean...
I would think so. The Netherlands... Bolaño is representing Chile. For anyone who doesn't have the bracket in front of you or isn't looking at this online as you're listening, Bolaño is representing Chile with By Night in Chile, and then the Netherlands, they're up against the Netherlands with The Dinner, the Herman Koch book. And
the winner of that will face...
Brazil and Budapest, yeah.
And
that's tough.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a really tough one.
And the winner of that goes up against Q-Teen-84 or Days of Abandonment. Ria Lyons is judging that round, the second round one for Japan versus Italy. I don't know. That'll be interesting. I think.
I mean, to me, I stand by my statement. I think Days of Abandonment has to be a favorite.
Yeah,
it's a really amazing book. She's an amazing writer in general. So
I'm with you there.
Especially since the presumed favorite, much like in the real World Cup, got its ass kicked.
that presumed favorite that you're referring to would be Spain, and Javier Marias is Your Face Tomorrow, which lost to Australia's Barley Patch by Gerald Murnane, or Murnane, I'm not sure how you say his name. Which, you have some opinions.
I have opinions.
Go. Give me your opinions.
I don't understand. I've not read this book from Australia. I just do not understand how anything could compete. Any of these books in this entire bracket, including some of my favorite books, just can't compete with Marius's trilogy. It's just a masterpiece, an absolute masterpiece. It deals with everything about the modern world that there is to deal with. It just confronts it head on. There's no metaphor. There's no distraction. It's just life, like put on a page and poured over and philosophized about in just the most brilliantly direct way you can. And I can't believe that something beat it. Especially, I don't know. I don't know enough about this book, to be fair, but I really thought it would coast on through for a little while.
I thought Spain had to win at least the first round. And probably at least make the quarters.
Yeah.
Oh, and then based on like who else is down there, probably the semifinals because
Yeah.
I don't think Greece, Ivory Coast, Uruguay, or Costa Rica is really a huge. That bracket's going to be weird now.
Yeah. That bracket looks like a mess.
I shouldn't say too much about this because I am the judge for Australia versus Mexico. So I'll have to reserve some of my statements. But I was fairly surprised. I've read almost all of Barley Patch, and I was fairly surprised that it won. Well, let's put it that way. And also, just the covers alone, man. That Barley Patch cover is a disaster.
Yeah.
It is an absolute disaster. But then again, okay, so how many people do you think supported that decision?
Oh, God.
It wasn't the closest, as I said. The closest was Japan.
60%?
Not quite, 58.
Whatever. We'll call that a push.
I think Moro like rigged it. I think he just kept voting from different IP addresses over and over again.
All right. Whatever. We'll move on. It just infuriates me.
Some of these others are pretty obvious. Like Algeria, The Sexual Life of an Islamist in Paris beat Russia's Day of the Oporotchnik, which I'm not surprised by. I mean, I guess it's an upset because it's Algeria and Vladimir Sorokin's such a huge name in Russian literature. But at the same time, that Sorokin book's not spectacular by any means. So not surprised, I guess, personally.
These others, I mean, I guess we shouldn't have been surprised at this, but I thought Urs Widmer had a chance. But Castellanos Moyas beat it. I mean, it is his masterpiece. I get it.
Yeah. That's a really good book, too. That's a tight book.
Also, a New Directions book and another New Directions book, an episode in the life of a landscape painter. Cesar Ira, representing Argentina, beat out Graceland by Nigeria's Chris Abani. So that's two New Directions books. Should have been three. Should have been three.
and will hopefully be 4 with Chile. Is there another one you guys have on here?
I think that's the last one.
4. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else. No, yeah, that's the last one.
Yeah.
Wow, so you could have 4 of the 16.
4 of the 16.
Oh, but you
like
won't.
The Big East, or I don't know. What's a good bracket?
That's a good but Big East is pretty solid.
Right.
The one that I think is most interesting in this this podcast, the write up on this will be up just before this podcast goes up, is that the USA beat Portugal in the opening round.
I don't know anything about that Portuguese book.
Oh, Jerusalem by Tavares. It's really good. I really, really like that book. I read it a couple summers ago before I went to Portugal. It's very interesting. It's got a lot of intersecting sort of narrative point of view things that are happening on a particular period of time. I think it takes mostly place over like one particular night. But it's a really interesting, really well-crafted, very almost like architecturally well-crafted book. But I can see why the U.S. like just powers through that. Pale King is really good, even if it is like fragmented and jacked up. It's still like, I mean, some parts in that are just stunning. But I know Will Evans that wrote the write-up, which I have not received yet, so I don't know what his reasoning is. But I know that he went back and forth and said it was very close.
Interesting.
Yeah, Jerusalem's really good. I don't think Portugal would have had a better option because I don't think any of the two books that have been written since the year 2000 by Saramago would win because they're not that good. No. And also the same thing for Antonio Lobo Antunes, who's my favorite Portuguese author. His post-2000 books aren't the best ones. They might have won, but because they're really good, but I don't think that they're the best things that he's done. So I think Jerusalem was the right choice for Portugal to put forward, but they just got taken down.
It is Dave Foster Wallace, after all.
Yeah. It's not like it was just a crappy US book. But that bracket's gonna be weird because Belgium and South Korea play. The winner plays the US, which I have a hard time seeing either one of those beat David Foster Wallace. And then you have either Welbeck or this Ecuadorian book, The Pot-Bellied Virgin, up against Episode of the Life of a Landscape Painter, which is a match that you're judging. The winner of that one's going to go up most likely against the U.S.
Yeah.
To make the semifinals.
Yeah.
It's getting tight. Next week we get to find out all the rest of the first round, too.
Oh, wait, that's not semi. That'd be quarters.
Yeah, that'd be the quarters to move on to the semis. So
Right.
either U.S. or France, Ecuador, Argentina will be in the semifinals.
Yes.
Nice. Nice, yeah. I think it's going to be curious. Who do you think? Yeah, I mean, we're all going to be after we do our judging. Once it gets to the quarterfinals, there's groups of people who are voting, like 6 people voting on the quarters, 12 on the semis, and everyone on the finals. So I don't think it's out of place for us to just guess as to who we think might win.
God, I have no idea. I would say the German book, presuming
Sebald?
it's Ghana,
Yeah,
would be a favorite. Everyone loves Zebalds.
I don't love Sebald.
I do not either, but I do understand why people do.
Me
And
too.
I would. Bolaño, got to be a favorite.
That's true. Although Budapest is one of the books that you really, really like.
I really do like Budapest. I don't know that it's.
Who judges that match? Oh, Jeff Waxman.
Is that Waxman? Yeah.
Curious.
That'll be tough. And
That
then
is.
Days of Abandonment. I don't know.
Yeah.
If we're looking at Ira or Welbeck versus David Foster Wallace, I don't have any idea how that would pan out among
6
our panel
voters.
judges.
Yeah.
I really don't.
I don't know what's going to come out of that top quarter, which is the one I'm voting on. Like, I could see it being Uruguay with the rest is jungle. I could see it being, I don't know about either Mexico or Australia making it past that next round. I don't know. That's a weak corner, I think.
That is a weak.
Now that Spain got taken
Now
out,
that
I think it's a weak quarter. You know, Barley Patch is essentially like the Australian Sebald.
Okay. Isn't it a bit more
Filleting? Oh, I mean,
less linear? I was going to say.
no, not really. It's pretty similar in a lot of ways. So it's like, yeah, it reminds me of that sort of like landscape of the mind idea. Although this is much more about the creation and how things become created and how fiction gets written, sort of idea.
I'm sick of that as a topic. I don't care.
I read the back of this book out loud at the bar the other night, and it did not receive very glowing reviews from the patrons. They're like, "Really? That's what you're reading?" It's like, "Yeah, it's great."
All right, we need to stop harping.
We have yeah.
All right. Should we move on? We've got
Rants and raves. You
Rants
want
and raves.
to rave, don't you?
I'm going to rant. Why don't you rant first, and then we'll. So I think I have responses to your and things to add to your ranting.
Okay, my rant is about USA soccer fans. I went out.
Wait, can we back up? Let's call them what they're actually called. The American
Patriots?
Outlaws.
Patriots?
The American Outlaws. That's what they're officially called.
The American Outlaws. I went out to. I wanted to see. I had to see. I felt like it was just like sociological, like whatever.
Peer pressure. I think
Yeah. I really just wanted to. I wanted to observe. I like observing situations like that. So I went to the bar that's showing all the soccer games. It's the one I usually go to, called the Tap Room, which is a really nice place, to watch Ghana and the U.S. I got there at 5:00 and barely could find a place to stand. And within the next 30 minutes, was crowded in, slammed in by every number of people wearing USA shirts, carrying a flag on a flagpole, wearing flags draped over them, and chanting that fucking "I believe that we can win, I believe that we can win" over and over and over again, which in my mind, I can only ever hear that as "I believe in guns and weed, I believe in guns and weed," which I think would be a better chant in the end and probably a little bit more American in some sense. But the game started, and these people are the most obnoxious and awful people to watch sports with. It's just over the top. Like, they're chanting. Anytime that Ghana made a foul, they were like, "Asshole, asshole." It's just like a soccer play. Like, none of it. It's like I feel like half of the people in that bar had never watched a soccer game in their life and were just there because they just love America so much and the concept of America having to win. And like that thing, it sort of reminds me of like the Nobel Prize problems I have when people complain about that, where they're like, no American ever wins the Nobel Prize. It's like we don't engage with this sport or the rest of the world in relation to the sport or in literature, but yet, because we're America, we deserve to win, and our fans are like the most obnoxious, awful fans ever. It was really hard to suffer through. When also, two more things. When Ghana scored, everyone went silent. And I just yelled out, USA, USA, fuck Africa, USA. And everyone started chanting along, which is terrifying. Then also, when Dempsey's goal, which was scored in whatever it was, 38 seconds or whatever, and I mentioned this to you that night, that initially it was on the screen as the 6th fastest goal in World Cup history. Within an hour after that match was done, it was the 3rd fastest goal in World Cup history, which I have no idea how that happened. And now I think they've settled on it's like the fastest American goal in World Cup history as being the way that they're going to categorize it. Then the next morning, as you pointed out as well, the entire rhetoric surrounding America's win was just horrifying and just kind of sick about like the sub that came in, whose name I'm blanking out on. It's the first substitute ever to score for the U.S. in the World Cup, which whatever. And like the whole thing, just like it's just nonstop like U.S. like patriotic, jingoistic shit, and it's really, really hard to suffer through and there's no objectivity. No one in that bar afterwards was like, the U.S. didn't play very well. Like they're really bad in the attacking third. They don't pass very well. It's just like America. Like you're just gonna have a hero come in and save the day at the last minute. Like no one talked about any critical analysis of that. It was just blatant. Like it's the U.S. U.S. is the best. We won. Fuck yeah. And it's hard to take.
I agree. It is hard to take. And I never rooted for the U.S. in the World Cup. I never have in the past. This year, for whatever reason, I finally got talked into it. To sort of, mind you, this is before all of this started. I kind of felt like, okay, I will root for the U.S. Then I'm sitting, and mind you, I refuse to go to the bars because they'll all just be packed around here and it'll be obnoxious and I'll hate everything. But I did watch with 3 friends who know about soccer, and we've all watched the World Cup together before, and we were still getting beer out of the refrigerator when the first goal happened, so we missed that. And then it was an insufferable match for a long time, and then Ghana scored, and it was very hard for me by that point not to like cheer for Ghana. Yeah. And then when they scored the goal, like all 3 of my other friends were like jumping up, high-fiving each other, and I was just like sitting there. It's like I realize this sort of like nationalism, like just blind patriotism, doesn't sit well with me, and I think it's a personal thing. Like it just does not sit well with me, and I just can't do it. And it has nothing to do. Like I don't do it in the Olympics. I can't do it for the World Cup team. I just, for whatever reason, I can't root for somebody simply because I'm supposed to. You know what I mean? It doesn't work for me. And especially on a wide scale like that. Like when we're talking like a whole country, I can't do it.
You'll appreciate that 2 of the people on my indoor soccer team were at the bar, and I saw them afterwards while I was watching the Mets and Cardinals game. And they were like, and I had sent out a message to our soccer team and said something about Go Ghana. And they're like, did you really support Ghana? I was like, yeah, of course. They're like, well, what country were you born in? How can you not root for the USA? Weren't you born here? It's just like, oh, that's exactly the reason why I don't want to. Like that argument is always the most annoying argument in the world to me.
Yeah, it just makes no sense. I mean, if you are a fan of a team, be a fan of that team. We are not bound to anything. I mean, that's exactly what this country fought for in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Right to choose to do whatever the hell we want. And if I don't want to root for the country I was born in, I'm not going to.
Who are you pulling for now that everyone's played and we've had a chance to see all the teams?
Well, I like the Dutch. I am a huge fan of Robin.
I hate that guy. Worst flopper ever.
I am a big fan.
He also played for like all the worst teams too.
France and Italy. I still love the French and Italian teams. I love the way they play.
I think Italy is pretty good.
Yeah.
France did very well, but like I don't know if they're...
It's a really bad opponent. I will say the Italians looked very good. Mm-hmm. The English looked particularly bad. So I don't know how good the Italians actually are, but I will say this: the Italians would kick our ass.
Oh yeah,
and be close.
yeah. I really loved Mexico yesterday during that game. Like that was just ballsy for them. Like to withstand all of those shots and have that the goaltender like keep it 0-0 the entire game. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, that goaltender had a hell of a match.
That he's going to get paid well. He's a free agent right now too, or whatever the soccer equivalent of free agent is.
I think that's what they're called.
It probably is. But yeah, he wants to possibly stay in France, but like and play for Marseille or wherever. But like that, I don't know. After something like that, he could get picked up by any number of clubs, I'd think. I love Belgium. I'm just that's the team I'm just putting all my hopes behind.
They're
just
really
breaking
good.
through.
They're really good.
They're just starting to come together too, because all their players never play together.
Yeah, no, it took them about a half to come together yesterday. So
yeah,
no, they're good. I would like to see them win. Anyway, we'll have plenty more time.
Oh yeah. To rave away.
Rave away. So we're out at a bar a couple weeks ago, and it's warm, and I don't remember exactly how this came up, but my friends and I started talking about. Do you remember? I don't know if you called it this where you grew up, but there was a game we played where you throw a ball against the wall, and you got to try to catch the ball, and then you got to try to run to the wall, and you can throw it at them, and you got to. Do you know what game I'm talking about?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Did you have a name for it?
Not that I can remember.
Okay, we called it suicide, which...
Oh, right, yeah, you're right, yeah. That was what it was
which
called.
Is the name I knew it as, and I looked it up on Wikipedia, and there's a page for suicide that begins, sometimes abbreviated SUI. I never called it that in my life.
What? Yeah.
I am just raving, honestly, about the 2 Wikipedia pages for these games. If you want to read 1,500 words on one page for the suicide page about this game, you are welcome to. It is just fantastic. Suicide, sometimes abbreviated to SUI, or otherwise referred to as, quote, wall ball or elimination, is a game typically played by children and teenagers. The rules vary widely from place to place. Those given below are not necessarily a, quote, standard form of the rules. It goes on to explain in much more detail what I tried to just explain, even though it's kind of a complicated thing, even though when I was 10 years old, it made perfect sense.
Right, yeah.
In the gameplay section, I love this note at the very end. It says, note, for games featuring more sensitive players, it may be acceptable, instead of pegging a player, which means to throw it at them, who is open to get them out, to throw the ball at the wall before the player, quote, tags up. The no pegging rule must be stated before the game begins. So, if you're a wimp, basically, we can play this sensitive version where there's no pegging.
That's crap. This sort of one of the things in the strategies I love is some players deliberately avoid the ball at all costs. Well, this is looked down upon. It is a legal strategy. My daughter used to play some crazy game. I can't think of what it was called at her school. That was sort of a version of this where there were multiple like kickball-sized balls in the middle of the gym, and if you got it, you had to stand. You could take 3 steps and whip it at someone. Unless you're outside of a certain lines, then you could run in a circle. And her strategy was just to like wait until she was like the last person and then hit one person and win, which I told her was a terrible strategy.
That is a terrible strategy.
You might be victorious, but it's like the old Italian soccer teams of just like not allowing anyone to score. Like that's just boring. Play the game.
So if you scroll way down on the suicide page there, it says, for more information, go to Wall Ball. If you click on Wall Ball, you are instead brought to a page. Butts up. And it says, redirected from Wall Ball. Butts up, and then this is the best, the whole knows this, the best parenthetical aside on a Wikipedia page I've seen in a while. Butts up, and then in parentheses, all of this. AKA burn ball, ballsies, rump rounders, buttock blocker, red butt, blackjack, assies, rehab and tea, wall ball, slaughterhouse, fumble, butt ball, bear trap, asses up, suicides, stitch, peg, fire in the bum, a ball, buns up, booties up, electric booty, no fear, red bum, jetters, red ass, red out, sting, error, off the wall, Kirby, spread, or burn.
It has to be noted that the one that like the fifth one in when you pronounce it is Assie's Rehab and Tea, all one.
That's all one.
It's like the rehabbing tea of Assies. What the fuck? How does this exist?
This is some serious dedication to updating a Wikipedia page. I commend you, whoever you are.
And the age range, pre-adolescence and up.
Yeah. Oh, the game is co-ed, although in practice, its aggressive nature attracts mostly boys. Citation needed. Popular in New England is a frequent variation of the wall ball that usually differs a lot from the one widely known as butts up. I should say I am from New England, so maybe this is why the game, as I was reading on the last page, didn't make any sense to me.
Oh my god. This is
let's scroll
fantastic.
down. There's, in variation, practiced widely in Santa Clara County, California. Who the hell did the research on this? But there's one version that is only played in Santa Clara.
In the mid-1980s.
It's amazing. It's like there's a documentary I've never seen, and that's what they're referencing.
Seriously, this is the longest
It's
rules
so
of the
long.
game explanation I've ever seen.
The terminology is like 20 terms. What could these possibly be?
How anyone found all of this is amazing.
This is really dedication to a game we all played when we were 12. You know? Like,
Seriously. Oh my god.
I will say,
Wow.
it makes me want to play some Suicide, though.
Yeah. Those
yeah.
kind of games, every time I see like the kids playing one of those things, it's like, I just really want to get in on this. Like, there's just let me in. I'll handicap myself a bit. We had there's a place here called
I think age just handicapped us enough.
Yeah, that's true. Like my knee has no tendons left in it. Like I'm pretty
Right,
sure
you're
it's
not
fair.
So
I can barely walk. There's a thing here which they have these all over now called Sky Zone. That's all trampolines inside, and you can just jump around on them or whatever. But they do have a trampoline dodgeball thing that you can do there, and it's for all
saying that
ages.
You play dodgeball while jumping on trampolines?
Yes,
I see. Are
yes.
you all on your own trampoline?
No, there's a lot. You can jump back and forth on other people's trampolines too.
That seems like it's rife for lots of falling.
Oh yeah, yeah. It has to be. There has to be a lot of injuries. You have to sign like a 25-page waiver to go into this place, but like it's worth it. There's even like I think there's trampolines like against the walls to make sure that you can just bounce off of those too.
Just literally bouncing off the wall.
Yeah, I remember this. The first time I heard about the trampoline place was there's a football player, maybe he was retired, who was at one of these with his kids and fell off and broke his leg. Do you remember this story?
He must have been retired, because if this happened like in the off season, you would never hear the end of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Although baseball players are famous for, slipping in the shower and stupid shit like that. So
Absolutely.
anyway,
Okay, it's time for Chile and Spain. This is going to
Chile
be
and Spain.
insane.
let's go Chile. Although I don't think they have it in them.
Really? I think it could go either way.
I think Spain.
Yeah. It was fucking Joba Chamberlain dislocated his right ankle on a trampoline.
Again, baseball player. It's
you
never
go.
a football player.
Never a football player.
Always a baseball player. By the way, have you seen Joba lately?
No.
He plays for. He used to play for the Yankees, obviously.
Right.
He plays for Oakland
Wow.
Tigers, maybe. What the hell does he play for? Anyway, he plays for the Tigers. He has grown a big beard and he looks terrifying.
Oh dear. That's not good.
Yeah. It's not a good look.
Right.
Anyway.
The Cardinals are rolling your team right now. 2 days in a row. Oh, the Cardinals are awful this year.
Yeah, the Mets are awful too. It's a series no one cares about.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a Chilean soccer player with an Air Jordan tattoo on his neck, I would like to point out. I just saw that.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm
I
going to
love
kick
Chile's coach. Chile's coach is awesome.
my favorite Mexico's coach I call El Gordita Burrito. He's my favorite so far. Like, he just looks like one big round burrito. Like, he should just be out there just, like, rolling around in the goal, blocking everything.
He has no neck.
He has no neck. And he's always upset about things. And he's, like, very flamboyant in that kind of, like, Mexican, Latin American way. It's fantastic.
He's like 5'2"
I
and
think
has
so.
no neck.
And about 320.
I would love to see a picture of him next to The Rock. Like make that happen someday.
Oh, dear. Okay, I'm gonna go kick my intern off of her
All right,
computer because her computer's bigger and watch this.
All right. Well, we should wrap this up and say that we'll be back next week to talk about the end of the first round of our World Cup of Literature. And,
Yeah, we'll have to do that at some point.
forward.
I'm gonna be in Vegas. We could do it from Vegas, hopefully.
Only if you're smoking a cigar and drinking brandy at the same time.
Will do at a
At a
pool.
poolside bar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Hey,
Bye.
guys. Bye. Self filleting.